Checky.
Rampart. No, it's 151.
Call this meeting of the Board of County Commissioners budget meeting to order. And at this time, we have a quorum present for commissioners here in the chambers, as well as Commissioner Shanefield online with the always popular Zoom.
Yay.
If you'll join with me standing in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have a moment of silence after that, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. It's a little anxious there. Sorry about that.
Everything going on, that's not enough time.
I had more to think about, huh? That's true. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion to suspend Robert's rules, and let's be a little more casual about things.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd so move.
thank you. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we will move into our agenda. Christina, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. What do you have for us?
So I have some cartoons in the packet I emailed you.
I saw lots of colors.
Color. So I am going to be referring to the packet I emailed you. And as you have pointed out, this is casual. I would encourage any of you to ask questions for clarification as I'm going along. So overall, I'm going to be covering the Grants Administration Department budget, grant projects budget, and then lastly, we'll be discussing ARPA, and that may be continued when Jean comes up to talk about the capital projects. Okay, so if you're on the first page of my packet, the bottom line is the left-hand side in blue is your Cliff Notes. That's the bottom line. So for the Grants Administration budget, my total request is going to be $166,805. That's an increase of $4,904 or 3%. That is due to fringe benefits as calculated by Human Resources. There are no changes from last year. Any questions on that?
Questions, commissioners?
Okay.
No.
All righty. So next,
Going well.
okay,
Carry on, yeah.
check.
It's a good start.
So next, we're going to talk about grant projects. As you know, all grant contracts and awarded funding is segregated into project accounting. I've provided you a list of anticipated county match costs. Now, the grants that are awarded 100% are not listed on this. And I can tell you it's raining grants right now. Every day there's opportunities and emails, but you should be aware of the costs for potential grants. Now, again, on the left-hand side, those Cliff Notes, the total request is just under $250,000 for the match portion. That is actually a decrease of $34,710. So that is for the following anticipated grants. The CMAQ grant, which is dust control on county roads. The EMPG, that's Emergency Management Performance Grant. That's for the payroll for the Emergency Management Coordinator. The next grant would be for the Victim Witness Grant. That is for 2 part-time victim witness coordinators. That's kind of a loose cannon because we don't know the state budget. So there might be a significant shortfall. I've tried to budget the worst case scenario. Next, the BVP grant. I know you're enjoying all these acronyms.
Love them.
That's for bulletproof vests. The match would be 25,000. The assistance to firefighters grant, that's for a fire truck, just under $25,000. That was awarded last year, but we're budgeting the match this year. And then the Volunteers to Fire Assistance Grant, that's a 50-50 match, budgeting $7,500. And then, of course, there's always unknown. So I put in $20,000 for that. So if any of these projects don't happen or they go under, that county funding, that county portion results in cash carryover. It doesn't go to anyone, it just goes back to your reserves. So is that okay? Is that clear for you?
So the grant we're asking for, it'll come under potential, the FNRPA grant, the Federal Natural Resource Policy account, that $35,000 grant,
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Toman,
because you said it'll come in next year.
so that grant, if it gets paid into fiscal year 23, that'll be a receivable. And there's no cash match, but it gets budgeted to reconcile. So the expenditures would probably be in fiscal year 22, and we'd collect the revenues in fiscal year 23, and I will be putting that into the budget.
And that'll come under the miscellaneous or whatever.
No, that's not a potential grant. It's a 100% grant, but because of the
Oh.
timing,
Okay.
that actually happens with others. So,
I get it.
okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Who pays the EMPG? Where do we get that money from?
That is from Wyoming Homeland Security.
Oh, okay. We'll take it.
Now, and these are always the best guess because the NOFO or the Notice of Federal Opportunity hasn't even been published. But for our planning purposes, I already spoke to the state director. They're counting on it. I've communicated with Brenda in Human Resources, and we will budget according to this plan.
Thank you.
Mhm.
On to ARPA, unless there's other questions. Doing well, Lauren? All right, thanks. Carry on.
Okay, let's begin the ARPA journey again. So this is just a brief summary out of the 216-page act to refresh your memory. So the final rule of this funding was finalized by U.S. Treasury just in January 27th of this year. So I know you all like to talk to a lot of peers and colleagues of different government entities. I just want to caution you, there are different rules for different tiers of governments. And so our rules may not be the same as someone else you may be talking to. Okay, please keep that in mind. So as a refresher, there are 3 main objectives of ARPA funding. So the main one that I'm focusing on that yellow brick road in your packet is to maintain vital public services, even amid declines in revenue resulting from the crisis. The second overarching objective is to fight the pandemic and support families and businesses struggling with its public health and economic impacts. And then last is to build a strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. So when you think about expenses and how to use the funding, this is the end of the road. These are the objectives you should be satisfying. Now, under that, there's 4 types of expense categories. For me, in my opinion, the most interesting is the public sector revenue loss. And that's where up to $10 million can be considered a standard allowance as revenue loss. So in the rules, it states that it presumes that there's lost revenue due to the pandemic, and you don't have to justify it at all. Now, the rules had changed from the interim rules. Bonnie and I were looking at the lost revenues. You had to calculate it every year. The final rules say 100% of our 8.2 million can be considered lost revenue. All right. Okay, the other three categories are public health and economic response and for businesses. Third, premium pay for essential workers. And then water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So this is a little bit misleading. We can't build a stadium with our money or general purpose projects. It really has to be tied to the pandemic. And US Treasury states it's to improve access, for example, to broadband for underserved areas, or for underserved areas to have clean water, sewer, and so forth. So I want you to really look at that lost revenue part, because that money can be used for government services, traditional services, public safety services, road building and maintenance, and or other infrastructure, and critical infrastructure, including cybersecurity. I've noted down for you some of the unallowable uses. You can't put it into my specific retirement fund, unfortunately, but no rainy day or reserve funds directly, no legal settlements, no pension obligations, or you can't protest the CDC regulations. And that was added to the rules. So and a side point, we can't use the money to match federal grants. But now keep in mind, and I'm not going to read all this on the right. Are you Googling ARPA?
I don't know what did that. So, wow, sorry.
So on your right, you have some of the compliance requirements. In a nutshell, we have to comply with the Office of Management Budget Uniform Guidance 2 CFR 200. That's administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements. Now, a few months ago, I told you whenever you have grants, you got to think about it as every expenditure has to be necessary at a reasonable cost and allocable. It cannot be fluffy or vague. It has to be specific. It's the same rules for all of this ARPA money, okay? And of course, we're trying to limit our risk for non-compliance and I have to pay this money back. So again, that was ARPA. We had discussed it a few months ago, but these are the final rules. Do you have any questions on this page? And this is, remember, the recovery funding, the 8.2 million, okay? And Lauren, you okay up there? Okay. So now part 2 of ARPA is the consistency fund. We had the recovery and now the consistency fund. And that is known as revenue sharing counties. Those are counties that get both PILT money and Secure Rural Schools funding, or SRS. So those are areas of public lands and forests. Now, in the ARPA Act, there is money set aside for this as well that the county will be receiving. Now, unlike the recovery money, it can be used for any government purpose, and it's going to be paid twice, both this fiscal year, which will be deferred into the next fiscal year, and also in fiscal year 23. The only unallowable uses are no lobbying activities for your elections. So now, as with the before, I mentioned compliance requirements, it's identical. We have to attach expenditures to this money. We have to use our procurement processes. We have to report it in our audit. So in this chart that I have for you, I wanted just to demonstrate the magnitude of the potential funding under the consistency fund. So the entire budget for PILT, just regular PILT, was just over $500 million. Now, for the consistency fund, it is over $700 million. It's 42% more. It is absolutely incredible. And we're going to get that twice in a row, 2 years in a row. So our regular PILT money was just 3.5, almost 3.5 million. Our secure rural schools, it's just 37,563. And that goes into our general fund when you allocate it. But, you know, the point is that we don't know yet how much of this consistency fund we're going to receive. I have contacted US Treasury. They don't have a finalized plan. I know you're all aware of emails of formulas to use it the same as regular PILT. I also spoke to the Department of Interior that releases regular PILT. They haven't been included in the discussions, so they don't know. And I also talked to Jonathan Sheffield, the Associate Legislative Director at NACO. He said they're very tight-lipped. We hope to know soon though, okay? So again, more money coming under the consistency fund and all considered grant funding.
Is the
Okay.
consistency fund on top of PILT or is that PILT? But it's called the
Consistent, it
consistency
includes
fund.
PILT.
Includes PILT in there.
It's all the revenue share counties,
Thank you.
okay? But that is impressive. Any questions on this before we get to the last and final page?
That was my one question. Anything else, commissioners? Okay,
All
carry
right.
on.
Okay. So on this last page, I call it like the fiscal year 23 budget with ARPA, because you need to start planning for it. And that's why we're all here. So I'm going to split this up in 4 areas. So the first is that shaded orange colored or reddish colored. I want you to be aware of the last 3 fiscal years, your budget. So you could see how it has evolved over the 3 years with the most recent year. And these numbers were provided to me by Bonnie. So 41.3 million. So to account for the funding shortfall, so you could see above in fiscal year 22, there was a $10.6 million shortfall. Part of that came from cash carryover and part of that came from reserves. So to meet budget, again, there was a shortfall and both are really reserves, but I thought it was interesting to look at the cash carryover, especially over the last 3 years. So now with that perspective, we're looking at revenue projections. I had the opportunity to contact our county assessor, Dave Davis, who gave me a very tentative and estimate number of where we would be compared to last year. And he saw that increase, that first number. Now, keep in mind, you're going to receive regular PILT, and per the email from Commissioner Toman at the legislative level, federal, we will be getting that SRS money as well next year. But again, we have to assign specific expenditures. But in addition to these revenues, you're going to have what I call the ARPA PILT, the ARPA SRS, and regular ARPA. That's a lot to look at over the next few years. Now, all the ARPA money has to be expended by December 31st, 2026. I'll have to report on it through 2027, but it has to be earmarked or obligated by December 31st, 2024. So the regular ARPA is the one with the strictest reporting requirements to the US Treasury. I'll have to report on PILT and SRS, but the ARPA, I have to do a lot more reporting, a lot more depth. So one of the ideas for your consideration when the capital committee met was to look at some of the public safety requests, which there were two from the coroner and, well, there were multiple, but specifically the coroner and sheriff had a request. And I'm gonna let Jean talk about all that later. But that could easily qualify under the objective of ARPA. And we could proceed actually immediately with those and offset, you know, those requests to you. Another idea would be to potentially use some public safety payroll. I pointed out, for example, public safety payroll in fiscal year 2022 was 4.2 million for the detention center. So that could help offset other monies. But remember, we're not taking it out of reserves. We're just using, we're not putting anything of ARPA in reserves. So my concern is because of the need to obligate funding by December 31st, 2024, it's probably better to get this earmarked sooner than later, at least over the next 2 fiscal years. So in terms of tasks, I wanted to ask for your direction, and if I could put this on the next agenda to have the county, first of all, approve going under the standard allowance for revenue loss, because that next report is due in April. So, and remember, you could use the money for those other categories, but this is the least restrictive route. It's sponsored by NACO, by WCCA. And then second, for your consideration, if we can proceed with those purchases for $714,148, so that if there's no problems with the supply chain. And that is all I have. And I hope I didn't take up, oh, I took up a lot of time. I need to go.
It's okay, Marty doesn't mind. So the
Give me your paper.
so 2 questions for you on my side.
Okay.
One is the only dollar amount we know for sure is the ARPA, straight up ARPA.
Correct.
And then the second one is the capital projects for public safety of 714. Does that include both? Is that just the sheriff and coroner requests, or is that public safety payroll is both, all 3 of those?
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. That 714 is just the capital projects from the coroner and the sheriff.
Thank you.
And I don't want to take Jean's thunder and
We
explain
don't
those.
know. Gene loves the thunder. Bring in the thunder.
Mhm.
Questions, commissioners?
Well, I have a question. So we have 8 million on one page and 8 million here, and then this other additional PILT and SRS is probably going to be about another 7 million. So we're looking at 24 million possible.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, if we get the exact same, what I call the ARPA PILT,
Right,
it could be another 3.5 million
yeah.
for the next 2 fiscal years. So
Mhm.
that would be 7 million. The SRS, like I said, the only guidance we have is what we've already received. I know there was a lot of lobbying to use the same formulas, although I will say in the act itself, they're supposed to go back 20 years to look at economic information and the well-being of the community. So I don't know how they're going to do it. I will let you know, but you'll probably know before me because I'm sure you'll get the emails.
Not me.
Okay.
I'm last to know.
So
Anything else?
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And the ARPA, the regular ARPA, the 8.2, I have it shaded all the way through fiscal year 2027
Oh,
because we can split it up over
okay,
across
yes.
multiple years.
Mhm.
Question, commissioners?
Very good.
You in good shape,
Mr.
Lauren?
Chairman? Yeah, just more of a statement. I just want to thank Christina. We've spent a lot of Thursdays over the last 4 months, kind of having these discussions and getting educated. And there are times we have to miss some meetings because of meetings. But I do want to thank Christina for all the time she's put into this because it's immense. Like she said, 216 pages. And to be able to give us a really good summary in 4 is truly amazing. So I just want to thank her for that.
I would second that as well. Thank you. And I'm sorry you had to spend so many Thursdays with Roy, but it's part of the job, I guess. Right? Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Also thank Christina, but do we wish for Christina to bring forward at the next meeting?
I do.
Okay. Yes.
I think, and just a comment at the, we had it's a law firm, accounting firm hired by the state that came and presented to us at Waco at WCCA that recommended highly the lost revenue standard deduction using that. I mean, it was, she had everybody show hands. Is there anybody not doing this? You really better have a really good reason for not doing this. So that's the second to, Christina's recommendation as well. So.
All right.
After listening to that for an hour, we were just thankful we had Christina.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, there are some counties in Wyoming that got more than the 10 million. I think Natrona County and Laramie County,
There were 3.
or was it 3? And so, yeah, they could get the first 10 million and then proceed with the balance. So,
Mhm.
3 showed their hands anyway.
yeah, interesting.
Well, as more than the 10 million. So yeah.
Okay.
Probably
Great.
Teton or something.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry for the tardiness.
No, we love the colors too. It's very mesmerizing.
Very
So
nice.
thank you.
Very well done.
Quick, short, sweet.
Are you not going to keep it that way, Marty?
Gonna try,
Okay, let's do it then.
So you're going to close down purchasing?
if you want us to. We'll go home.
I need pens still. Who's going to bring us pens?
So,
Oh, Marty.
commissioners, first of all, I just want to let you guys know, and I know you've all been to the gas pumps and are dealing with this at the grocery store, but we've been kind of tracking just the cost of the inflation on your pins and everything we've been watching so far is going up about 20%. So just kind of be prepared for that in the budget process. But with my budget, it's going to go up depending on if the board approves the capital, $24,155. $6,000 of that is with the benefits, the increase in the benefits this year. I increased my operating budget by $5,500 due to that inflation. For those of you that aren't aware, in my budget, I handle all of the first aid kits that are located throughout all the county buildings. We supply them and stock them, so that money's in there. We also, in my budget, take care of all the copy paper. And I know that there's a 20% increase coming on that. So that's the increase in the operating. And then I had put into my budget $12,216 if my delivery truck replacement is approved by the board, which is in the capital that Gene will be presenting. And that's summarizes my budget.
You can buy a truck for 12,000?
No, that's for a lease payment.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Okay.
Well, we probably could. Wasn't you going to sell us yours that you just got?
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that's what you said.
Wait, you have 2. So
No, I have 3.
okay, you have 3.
Always stand in line at the sheriff's cell.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe we can pick up one there.
So,
Questions? So you're anticipating going from 418, 419 up?
yeah,
24,000.
421 to 24,000 increase.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions? That was short and sweet. Lauren, thumbs up. All right.
Okay.
Roy? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Marty. Tim, I'm glad you're coming up because I didn't have my agenda. Oh, there it is. Tim's next. Okay.
Yeah, I had to check.
Hi,
Just
Tim.
to make sure. Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. So
I'm guessing there's some big bucks here. Let's do it.
I don't have all my numbers yet.
That's okay.
I think we're still a little early on that, but what I'm hearing from most of my vendors is that our support contracts are going to go up about 15 to 20%. Cisco said 17% for sure on theirs. Some of these were in 3-year contracts on, so fortunately we're okay on some of them, but I'm expecting my operation budget to go up about 17% total. Just because most of it is in those contracts. The other thing I want to add, depending upon where this comes, is I'd like to add training back into our budget. We've kind of put training to almost nothing in the IT budget for the last 2 or 3 years. Typically, I like to spend about $5,000 a person to get them to classes so that they can stay up to date on what's going on in that world. So that's another thing that I'd like to do. The other thing I'd like to do is look at filling the vacant position we have in IT. Strategically, we are okay today with maintaining the current systems. So if the flavor is we just kind of want to maintain, we can go ahead and continue to staff like we are. But it doesn't leave me a lot of time to be able to look at moving forward with the different initiatives that we want to look at. So I'm spending a lot more time just helping with systems and network and other stuff. So what I'd like to do is look at that. But like I said, if what's going on in the county is we just kind of need to maintain because of budget, then we can stay where we're at. So that's kind of how it is. The capital stuff, I don't know if you want me to review the things we're asking for in the capital budget, or if we want to do that at the time of capital, but so.
Say that again, whether you want to, whether we.
So
want to
are we
the
going to
capital
handle like me expressing what I've requested in the capital items, or do we want to just do that all under the capital request?
I don't mind. Is it long?
I got quite a few here, but it's okay.
Go for
We're
it.
going to have to go through it either way, right?
Yeah, let's
Go ahead.
just go. through
So,
yours.
all right, so PC replacements, we want to be on a cycle of PC replacements. We're budgeting about $75,000 a year to do that. So that's one of the things.
What
we wanna-
replacement?
All the different PCs that
Okay,
are
PC.
older than 4 years old. So that's kind of the strategy we want to get to. My data center right now has 2 cooling units that are no longer supported, meaning that you can't buy the coolant for them anymore, or it's very expensive. So that's in the data center here in Green River.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Tim, when did we get those? When did we? put those in?
Oh, I don't know, 20 plus years
They're
ago.
20 plus years ago,
Yeah.
okay.
they're- It
And the
was over
hamsters are tired.
$20,000 just to repair it last time.
No, okay.
So they're pretty expensive. So
Thank you.
that's also in that list. It's pretty important. We do something there. The door lock consolidation, that's bringing everything under the Genetec umbrella. So that all the doors in the county are under one system. And that's one of the things we want to do.
Did I hear a dollar number for the data cooling?
I'm working on that, but it's about 200,000 is what I'm guessing.
Thanks.
Door lock consolidation. And we're just talking outside doors for all the buildings that aren't in the Justice Center. Roughly around $100,000 for that, maybe 125. The jail has security cameras. Some of them are older than, or as old as the jail. And so the quality on those is not good. And it's a high liability for us not to have good video images of the jail. So, so we're looking at upgrading that entire system. Between that and replacing the door lock system for the jail, the internal door control system. Right now, we are every couple of weeks having to go in and bring up support people to fix the things that are breaking on it. So I think we need to do both of those.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the door system for the jail,
Yes.
different than the door
Different
system.
than the door system for the county.
Okay, secondly, cameras for the jail, talking about all of them, or are you talking about setting them up on a rotation? What's the sheriff want?
These are we've done an analysis and gone through the entire interior of the jail and identified places where we have blind spots and places where we need to have better images and to replace.
Start replacing those first?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Between both of the systems, so everything in the jail, it's roughly around $1 million, so over $1 million.
Very good.
And we're talking to Christina about grants for doing that, so. And then we have some security things that we're looking at doing. We have these remote sites that we need to connect to. Currently, we have a little firewall that we put out at, like, for veterans and stuff that they use to connect back into our site. Those firewalls are no longer supported and they're getting old. So we need to replace those. Not super expensive, but in the process, we're actually looking about upgrading so that we can have a wireless backbone between us and the Justice Center. And that whole project is going to be roughly around $45,000. So then the web application firewall that we looked at last year, which was about $18,000 last year, is probably over $20,000 this year. We'd like to put that in as well.
Tim, is that a yearly cost?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that's my capital project list in a nutshell.
That's all
For
for technology?
Well,
Pretty fair. Thank you.
all right, thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Did we have any questions for Tim as he walks away? Lauren, you got a thumbs up? All right. Thank you, Tim. Perfect. Karen. Hey.
Oh, hi.
Hello, Karen. Tell us what you got.
My budget should stay pretty similar to last year's budget. There is a decrease in the salary and benefits because we went from a full-time person to a part-time person. My operating budget is less than $30,000, and I imagine it will stay quite close to that.
And that's that, huh?
You have questions?
Doc, what do you got?
Hey, Miss Kelly, some of the legislative action that's going on has been emphasizing juvenile support for juvenile probation and that type of thing. And even so far as some mandates and those type of things. Are any of those going to impact your department? Have you
They
been
will
following?
or could. They could.
So there could be a financial impact as well, right? Maybe?
Potentially, if the Community Juvenile Service Board funds are reinstated, we will bring that to our Community Juvenile Service Board, and the board will have to determine where to use those funds. And historically, they've been in my department. It'll be up to the board to determine if they would like to continue that support or try something different.
Okay.
In terms of the data collection, I believe at this point, the Department of Family Services is looking at being the gatekeeper for the data, but we will be providing quite a bit of that data, at least to them. And
The one thing that comes to mind, though, as I've been watching things is through the school districts, I want to say the attendance officer.
Mhm.
And they're talking about amending, well, what should I say? I'll just say statutes for chins and that type of thing. And of course, we all know that if we move forward with additional chins designations, that's going to take personnel. Is that going to be out of Department of Family Services, or is that going to be laid on juvenile probation?
if they're the chins, that would go through the Department of Family Services. But we have seen historically that a case will start as a chins for attendance related issues, for example, and that's just the first layer of the onion. And so they end up progressing up the line frequently and will come to us at some point. So it will likely increase our numbers.
All right. Yeah, just so we keep that in mind, because if that comes rolling, it's like a domino effect.
Yes.
could impact your department immensely. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
What do you got, Lauren?
Thanks, Karen. I just was curious how you're doing with training. That's been mentioned a few times, and I don't remember if it was cut down last year as everybody else's was, or if that's something we need to look
Training
at.
budget in like 5 years.
We have entirely cut our training budget for
That's
the
what I
last
thought.
several years. That's where it's been cut. We try to take advantage of any free or local training that we can find, any online training, internal community training, but we have no training budget at this point and have not for years.
For your employees, is that correct?
That is correct.
But you do need them. There are certain areas that you do need training for your employees to keep up on things, isn't there?
We would always benefit. We have been very lucky to partner with the sheriff's office on several things, with local law enforcement, Green River Police Department, Rock Springs Police Department. The Department of Family Services has also been cooperative with us. Suicide prevention trainings that are done locally through Southwest Counseling and the Prevention Coalition. We have partnered with them. So we just try to take advantage of what we can in the community.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would certainly recommend that some of these departments with their people that need training, we know if you don't train people, we're not going to get better or stay on the cutting edge. So I'd like to see us begin to start talking about training in some of these high-risk areas, i.e. juvenile probation and those things. So if it's all right with the rest, I would recommend that you put in some training dollars, Karen, please.
Mr.
What do you think, Karen, for training? What would an old budget for training have been back in the day when you actually had training?
We haven't had it for so long. I would have to invest in
Been at least over 5.
available. I don't even know, to be honest. It's been many, many years that we've had a training budget.
Would you look into that then and see what
Yes.
it may? And then I've got 492 currently. What do you anticipate then for the upcoming year? Just, we're not holding you to this, but
In addition to what when you do the numbers, in addition to the payroll and salaries, like I said, approximately 30,000 without a training budget. If we're looking at increasing that, I'd have to find out what is available and what those costs might be.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Roy?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Wendling said. I've been saying in previous meetings the same thing. As we've reduced staff, it's important that people are putting in training budgets because we're asking people to do more jobs and become better at it. And I think it's only fair that we help we help become a better organization by offering the training. And I know from being Karen's liaison for 2 years, it was at least 5 years before when I started as liaison that they had county training. So, I mean, they've gone 7 years without any significant training. And even though there's huge changes in the system, and Doc also brought up with some of the changes in potential with the legislation out there, that could enact more change and more training needed. So I totally agree that these departments really, they've been limited for so long by some of the budgets that they've cut back that training. And I think it's important that we make sure we're looking at those training components. So I totally agree with Chairman Wendling on that and think it's important.
Thank you. Karen, I don't think we want to act like you guys don't know what you're doing because you haven't had training for so long.
No,
So
that's not.
sorry, we don't mean to be
You're
leaguer that
very
point.
grateful.
You guys are doing a great job and we appreciate that with what you've had. So perhaps you can even do more with some training. So we'll see.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
well, that was my comment. I think you should be commended, Kelly, for partnering with other entities in the county that already do offer training. And if there's some specialized training, I think then you should budget for it. But if you're able to save the county and your budget by partnering with others, then that's wonderful. And that's what we should be striving for. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and good work.
Thank you.
Eric Bingham. What are you smiling about? What do you got up your sleeve?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let's do land use first. If that works for you.
Does.
Okay. As far as anticipated costs, as far as in the payroll, which we don't have a lot of say on, those costs will be going up due to the benefit increases. So you will see definitely increases in benefits and such. And then if any step increases, you may see some things there also. One thing I want to point out, it was something interesting I was going over today when I was preparing things. When I started downstairs, we had 14 people downstairs in the land use and engineering department. We have 5 now. With that includes Gene, because we were all one department at one time. So I do want to point out we've taken our share of cuts over the years, but we are definitely things are going very well downstairs. At some point, I think we need to have the discussion of the potential of adding an additional planner, lower level planner at some point to get some things done, because with being pulled in so many different directions, some things do definitely get put on hold. So something to look at in the future.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Doc.
Eric, what's the cost to add the additional planner?
You think, Eric?
Total,
Top of your head.
total all-in cost would be
Ballpark.
115,000.
15 or 15, 100?
Yeah, but
15.
benefits-
No, I'm trying to differentiate between 15 or 50. Okay, I know it's 100. I know it's 100, but I'd only hold you to 15. Yeah, I have to agree, because I think as we get moving and that type of thing, there's going to be some things happening, and you know, we've diced and that in those areas. So there's some of them we have to look at to improve and that. So I certainly think that would be appropriate to be prepared for when the time's right. So, you know, we can always do a budget amendment too.
Sure.
So I think it's a good move.
Thank you, Commissioner Wendling. Appreciate that. The good news as far as operating goes in my capital, there's a $12,368 lease payment that goes away this year. So the Tahoe that we have is paid off. So in the operating, that will go away, the 12,000, sorry, capital. That capital will go away. That was, we've made the 3 years of payments. The one thing that hurt us this year, and I know I've talked to Commissioner Toman and Commissioner Wendling about this, and Commissioner Lloyd, is my travel. I am going to look for, we have professional staff downstairs that does need training and such. The training was good as far as the amount that was budgeted there for training, but the $30 that was in travel, I'm not sure which hotel I could stay in for $30 a night, but I'm not sure I'd want to stay there.
Days in.
Oh, days, okay.
Hard Rock Box.
Thank you.
It's not open.
They'll leave the lights on for you.
Not for $30.
Well, you break a
It's a
window and go and
candlelight.
lay on it.
Thank you for the $30.
Candlelight.
Go ahead and double that, Eric, for next year.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Appreciate that. So we're probably looking for 3,000 to 4,000. Because as far as travel goes, if there's any trade shows, because, you know, I do work in economic development also when there's trade shows and things like that, other conferences and such. I do think that's necessary for me to do travel. So we're looking probably around $3,000 to $4,000 adding in there, and the rest will probably stay about the same. Next year, you know, we house the copier, the printer, and the plotter for the entire, most of the departments downstairs. That copier was purchased in 2016. So it won't be in this year's capital budget, but I did apply for that for the next fiscal year because we are coming up on the life of that copier. Can see you have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
is that copier used by all the departments downstairs?
IT, which is very little, HR, engineering, land use,
So basically by everybody other than probably the,
not the attorneys.
Attorneys.
No, they have their own, right?
okay, yeah,
So-
because if we move into that direction, we want one that's networked to as it is. So
Right.
there's one centrally located. Yeah, I'd rather pay for resoling of shoes than 3 or 4 extra copiers.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a point, though, that we shouldn't
Yeah.
whack your budget and then I'd rather see a real budget than one that we have to keep doing budget amendments and to get through the year.
Agree.
It's a good call.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, on land use.
Okay, so land use, 528, 529 currently. And what would you anticipate next year then?
Probably 575.
Thank you. Okay, let's do, oh, any other questions? Thumbs up, Lauren? All right. Let's do some economic development.
Okay, so hold on your hats. So, so Mr. Chairman, and Kayla and I have been in discussions with the city. And right now, what we have budgeted is $90,000, which doesn't even cover the loaded cost of employment. So the discussions that we're having, if we want to be serious about economic development, we need to start, we need to fund it, in my opinion. And that includes primarily travel, some marketing dollars that need to be accounted for into that. There's some thing called a site selector advisory forum where we can bring site selectors here. So a preliminary budget, when we sat down, we were around $210,000 from the $90,000. Now, remember, the shared costs go across the cities. So the cities have not approved anything. And this is our wish list. And this is what we feel that if we want to sit here and properly market the county, start going to trade shows, promoting Sweetwater County, that we do need a robust marketing budget to do that. Which would be around $50,000 to do that. And that's on the low end of things, doing things such as search engine optimization, programmatic marketing, things like that you can do on the internet. Do some lead forensics with our sites so that we can see who is visiting our sites and reach out to them. Lead generation, things like that, where we can generate some more leads. We do get them from the Business Council, but they are in limited amounts. So we'd like to get it so that we can get some more generation to reach out to some of these companies. We know we have a lot of empty buildings, industrial buildings in Sweetwater County, especially in Rock Springs, that we would like to promote and continue to promote. So again, this is a discussion. This is something that we would like to see, that I would like to see. But right now, with the costs that we're doing right now is not enough to do the marketing, if that makes sense, because we really need to get out there and market Sweetwater County, and that's going to cost money to do that.
So you're saying the county's portion of the budget, which I see is 90,000 roughly. A
No.
total budget would be 210.
Yeah, so
And so-
70, increasing it from 30 to 70,000 contribution.
Perfect. Other questions?
Are you still having your coffee with the county for the economic development? Are you still going forth with that?
We'd like to definitely time it with the meetings that you have as far as with a special purpose tax, and we want to time things correctly with that. But yes, we would like to continue with that. Yes.
What time? What time are these? Like evening or?
Evening, yes.
Evening?
Yep.
Like 7?
Yes. Yep. And the purpose of those is to reach out, explain to the public what it is we're doing, get that message out there as far as what economic development, and then any other questions or concerns that they have.
Other questions?
Just a comment.
Yes. Yes.
If granted from the other entities, the 2 cities, their thirds got to be supported by their councils.
Yes.
If by any chance we're sensing they're not, will you get back with us?
Yes.
And so we can go into an executive session over contracts so we can talk about this budget.
You bet, Mr. Chairman. And just so you know, on the beginning of April, on the first meeting, City Council, so your first County Commissioner meeting, I should know, hopefully, I will be presenting to the City of Green River.
Okay.
The same thing I am today.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions?
I think though, as he's presenting, we can't vote on it now, but it should be a consensus. we as a commission support that 210 at a third. Is that correct, Eric? You need that to move forward somewhat
Yeah. When the time comes, yes, Mr.
when the
Chairman.
time comes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, Lauren. All right. Thank you, Eric.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gary. Let's talk a little HR.
A few other things.
Yeah, VSO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. As you know, the HR department budget's almost 90% salaries. There's a small operating budget of 44,000. Be about $10,000 increase with insurance and benefit costs this year. The most of the training, in fact, almost all of the training this year has gone to the new employee. It's about the only training we could afford. So I'm going to be looking at about 415. Probably the most notable thing that we're waiting on that would affect that. We have some software purchases. I think Tim alluded to that with the Bamboo HR, SHRM Applicant Pro systems. We'll have pricing information on those in the next few weeks. Any questions on the HR side?
Questions so far? That's pretty
Going
straightforward.
in your radio voice there.
Questions from HR.
A little bit more challenging is the risk management budget. This includes liability insurance, property insurance, cyber insurance, as well as the cost to replace vehicles that are damaged by third parties. We don't expect big significant increases on the liability insurance portion. As some of you know, I'm on the Warren Property Insurance Board. The cost right now for building materials is really putting a lot of pressure on property insurance because it's a replacement cost policy. So if we damage a vehicle, especially new ones, it's replacement cost. So we decided and as a group adjusted the statement of values by 7%, which for us is about $24,000. And so I think that's very optimistic. I think we'll see at least a $24,000 increase from that. Now, one of the things that we did this year is we met with all the agencies, particularly the ones that have a lot of buildings like the events complex, Southwest Counseling, Public Works Department. And we're able to identify some structures that we've acquired that if they were damaged or whatever, we wouldn't replace. Seems silly insuring things that are really more props than anything. Unfortunately, they're not the big items, and we still have quite a few buildings that are vacant that we're insuring. And that cost is significant. As Tim mentioned, we have cyber insurance. And one of the significant factors which Tim alluded to in his budget that I think is important for us going forth, there's an enhanced cyber coverage. As you know, there's lots of entities here locally as well as across the country that are being attacked, public entities specifically. And there's some tools like multi-factor authentication and things that we have not implemented yet that will be important for us to consider. And I'm sure Tim will talk to you about that more as you go through the budget, but this is an area where we get some significant return on that, particularly if we have claims. So I would say right now to plan on, we'd be looking at something, the total is about 468. I think we'd be looking about just a little under 500,000 total.
Risk management?
I'm sorry, that, yeah. I'm sorry, the total would be 541.
541 is this year's.
With, and then the 20, adding the 24,000.
And then on top of,
Yeah,
so
on top of that, yeah.
looking 565, 570.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions on risk management?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, hey, Mr. McLean, you mentioned some of those programs that are being used to help reduce the insurance costs. Have we been able to do like an analysis of those to understand if we are actually seeing savings from all those programs, or are we paying more than it's worth? I guess that would be an important piece for me to know.
So the cyber insurance is brand new.
Yeah, no, the cyber,
yeah.
I don't think you could ever have enough cyber insurance at this
Yeah,
point.
so
Let's just
no.
be honest.
No, I think that's the, that's the most notable new program that's in there.
Okay.
So I mean, in terms of if you're talking about health insurance, we'll talk about that one separately, but this
Okay,
is
so
just risk.
Let's just save
management.
that question for health
Okay,
insurance.
okay.
Any other questions? Thumbs up there, Lauren. We good? Okay. Carry on.
The next one, which is 2420, is as kind of an employee benefit budget. This is an area where these are the costs mostly associated with things like background checks, pre-employment investigations, drug screening, things like that. Don't really have a good idea of how much we expect in terms of increases in some of those. This is primarily driven by how many vacancies we have to fill. I do expect us to see a little bit of a bump there from the standpoint that we've had some early separation agreements, and we'll have a few vacancies to fill, and we have some currently. But I think we're going to be really close, like, maybe 2,000 more than it is currently in that one.
Questions on employee benefits?
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
sorry, Gary, have you seen an increase in the cost to those along with the inflation that we're seeing in actual products?
We haven't seen that much of it yet because we have agreements for those, but I do expect to see a little bit of that later in the year, like by July. But obviously, the costs that are implicating other areas will be affecting us here. Absolutely.
When do we renew those contracts? Do you remember? Just
They'll
curious.
be towards July.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Keep on keeping on.
Next one, 3,600, that's VSO budget. And so we'll talk about this, I guess, in a couple stages. First of all, as you know, the Veteran Services program provides veteran services from essentially just outside of Jackson all the way to Evanston to Wamsutter, basically the western third. Lincoln County and Sublette County, as well as the state of Wyoming, all contribute to that cost. So the total budget for this department, obviously we'll see some increases as others. This one's similar to the HR budget, is almost 90% in salaries. And so you'll see about a $20,000 increase in that budget. Roughly speaking, the county's portion is a third of that, about $85,000. Currently, the state of Wyoming funds $17,000 to provide services in Evanston. That is done out of the Kemmer office. And then we bill them a couple times a year for actual costs. So basically use the project cost accounting tools to collect the costs for Lincoln and Sublette counties, and then bill them back periodically for those costs. One of the areas that's probably most significant, not probably most significant, is most significant is training, because the people in this area their ability to perform is directly related to their learning with the federal government and the VA regarding training. We receive training currently through the American Legion, the VFW, the National Association of County Veteran Services Officers, and through the state of Wyoming. The state of Wyoming is not charging us for those. The other training is moving slowly to completely online, so that's helped. We used their national training, so they were very expensive in Maryland and Indianapolis and other places. So we're hoping that that trend will continue. But this is really the bread and butter for these folks. We've got two very experienced and up in Sublette County, a little bit less experienced, but training is very important.
Good. So of that two, roughly 75, we anticipate, even with the state contribution and the others, about 1/3 of that is ours, or is it?
So when I say ours, I'm talking about Sweetwater counties. Yeah. So I'm saying around 86,000. Now that changes a little bit depending on who goes to what training or if the computer needs to be replaced. But yeah, roughly it's.
But we consistently get the other 2/3 from elsewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So the agreement with the state is for a certain number of hours. And so it's always going to be very close to that 17,000. That's the maximum under our agreement with the state.
Yeah.
And then the rest is the cost for the other entities. They pay their actual costs. So one of the things that's interesting about that program, and I think it's important to note, is that part of the reason that the costs are so low for covering, basically the western third of Wyoming, is that the other counties help out with giving us internet access and office space and things like that. So we, for example, in Sublette County, they'll do outreach to Star Valley and Afton and up in there every other week to Evanston. And then in Lincoln County, that's the case. And in Sublette County, they'll do outreach every week to Big Piney and periodically to Bondurant and to LaBarge. And that's been real successful. And again, I'd be happy when we get those to bring back to you the significant amount of money that comes back into the community in terms of veteran benefits. It's in the tens of millions of dollars. So it's a strong economic development program in addition to serving the needs of veterans.
I'm all for veterans, so excellent. Great. Questions? Okay. Next, look at you and all your folders. Keep on going.
The last one is the 510 fund. This is the health insurance fund. We just finished going through some initial data, and as you know, it's often a fickle one to project because you're always working off of old data, and so you're trying to get a picture of where that means in the future. Right now, we've recommended to the component units, which we'll be meeting with tomorrow, to increase, put us in right now a 7.5% increase of premiums, 7.5%. One of the areas that I think in going through the renewals this year that's particularly challenged, and I'll give you a flavor for this. For the past year, we just received stop loss reimbursements, 1.16 million. So sometimes you get a few claims that are very large and you get lots of stop loss reimbursement. Sometimes you get a lot of claims that aren't as expensive, but you don't get as much stop loss reimbursement. And so as we get just a little bit further in the year, I think we'll have a little bit better picture, but we feel fairly comfortable right now with the 7.5% increase on that one.
Perfect. So dollar wise.
What you think I added that in my head? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I could do that one in my head.
No worries.
Yeah, about 750,000.
How you feeling about the 7.5%? Is that
Well, I would say right now feeling okay with that. There's been some positive movement with some of the things that we've done. But as you know, you only have to have one or two large claims to sink that ship. So it's a little bit premature to say, but I think feel pretty decent about it right now.
great? Doc,
Yeah, Gary, prescriptions still running high on, still the lead and push on that.
Yeah, so as you know, the problem with prescriptions is kind of a yes and no. So on the day-to-day prescriptions, that stuff has actually come down in some ways. I don't know if come down is the right word, but it hasn't grown at the same rate as everything else. The problem that's really the challenge is we regularly have prescriptions now that'll be close to the stop loss limit just in pharmacy. There's one drug or maybe a small number of drugs, and it's that side of the market that is hurting us. Now, has been very successful so far, only have a few months into that, has been the move to Smith RX and some of their specialty programs. So we've had around $450,000 in savings just on a few large claims already in that regard. So that part's been real positive, but it's almost like you get it this year and then they come out with 3 or 4 new drugs and it seems like a moving standard. Just have to keep working on it. This is something that the legislature is going to have to fix. Congress is going to have to fix.
I think I heard that in the State of the Union. We are
Yeah.
not going to allow
I-
drug prices to continue to rise.
I think
And that
Mac-
was it though.
I think Mexico's got it fixed.
I think they do.
I brought back 1,800 milligram moxicillin for $12.
Well, let me give you one example, not to belabor this
So
point.
anybody, I won't sell it. Just
What else did you bring back? Never mind. We don't want it. We don't want it.
I'm glad
My bri-
Robert's rules
I
have been
brought my
dismissed.
bride back with me.
Not to belabor this point, though, one particular drug that's manufactured in the United States is sold to Canada, and through this program, we buy it back for the member for a savings of $120,000 for the same drug that's manufactured in the United States, goes to Canada, comes back as a mail order for like $120,000 savings. So I just don't know how much more ridiculous it can get. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we're funding the entire world when it comes to certain pharmacy things, and that's the bottom line.
Thank you.
So.
It's a good program. That's Smith RX. Thank you. Questions, other questions?
Yeah, I'm ready for my question
What
this
do you
time,
got?
as I was in the wrong insurance earlier. So, yeah, I just want to know if had a lot of employees actually visit with me about the Accolade system, feeling it's really ineffective and they really don't get much help from it. Have we done a review of those systems to make sure we're actually seeing a financial benefit from it? Because, and I'll be honest, there's been complaints about a few, but the Accolade system specifically is where I've heard the most complaints.
Yeah, so the Accolade was an attempt to basically target the large claimants, and with that to make sure to minimize the duplication of things like MRIs and CTs and get care directed to the right level so that there's not duplicate care being done. I would say in that area, there's been some progress. I'm not convinced that it's been successful from a day-to-day average employee basis. The target that we set was for 3 years so that we had enough measurable data. We meet with them every other week, and we get performance data from there. Obviously, a lot of the data is about context, not about numbers. And so we'll see better this year and maybe the first part of next year. But I think I'm sympathetic to those concerns and whether or not the dollars will make sense there. The problem is that you don't have to save a lot of money on one large claim to cover the costs of the program, especially when you're talking about $1 million claims, which are not uncommon anymore. And so is it going to be beneficial for day-to-day employees at that same level? I'm not convinced that that's the case, but we'll have a better sense, and I'll have a report for you in terms of the financial benefit of that. Certainly by the end of this year and a perfect picture by next year. And then I think at that point is it's been fully implemented, had an opportunity to see if they could do what they can do. To be honest with you, one of the things that I've probably not liked about doing that is that when my office was handling and still handles a fair amount of those, you get a better handle where the problems are in the community. Sometimes it's a vendor, sometimes it's a pharmacy, sometimes it's something in the plan document. And while we meet with them regularly, they're a large company. So does that mean that we always get that kind of direct feedback? I just don't feel that always happens like it's supposed to. So I think that definitely is something worth reassessing.
Roy, anything else?
No, that's plenty.
Good question. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Nice work. Appreciate that. Gene Legursky. Let's do it.
We're better known as 1/3 of the organizational chart.
Well, so we'll start off. Sorry, I'm going to move this up here so I can actually see you guys when I'm talking. We'll do capital last, if that's okay. Go
Capital
through the
last.
budget. Yeah, go through the budgets first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So we'll start out with 1,200, 12,000, 1,200, whatever you want to call it. Engineering budget. That one will go up this year because you guys have allowed me to hire an assistant engineer that I haven't had for 4 years. Go up about $150,000 on that budget. It'll match the budget from 2020-21 because that position's always been in there. We finally stripped it out last year, but I've never used it for 4 years. So
which one are we talking about?
engineering,
1,000,
1,200.
1,200. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. So 303, roughly the same next year, you think?
No, it'll be actually
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was thinking.
453.
Okay. I wasn't listening. I was
You weren't
still
listening.
looking.
That hurts.
I was like, wait, where are we at? What are we doing? Okay, engineering.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything else looks good. Professional services holding right now. We've seen slight increases in hourly stuff, and there's some stuff that we can, do project wise underneath fuel tax where engineering is done, or we can do, specific projects underneath the engineering that we need to pop up on occasion.
Give me that number one more time. For what?
I'd say 453.
53. Thank you. Okay, I'm totally paying attention now. Thank you. Carry on.
Facility maintenance, we'll go through payroll first. Without looking into all the costs and everything that are going to go up as far as insurance and everything, we did use the VSP to get rid of a middle management position that we won't be hiring back. We'll actually be hiring that person at an entry level position. So we'll save some pretty good amount of money there. Don't know exactly what it is because we don't know insurance wise. But when that person retires, we have to wait a little bit, and then we'll be coming before you to offer the entry level position because we need that position. The facility maintenance is actually down 4.5 people in the last 3 years that we've ripped out of there. Right now we have 5, including myself, in that position. So, and then a part-time person that we split between that and Parks and Rec. Works 6 months for Parks and Rec doing maintenance for them during the summertime, and then we pull him into the facilities and have him do facility maintenance and catch up on our all of our other stuff that lacks that we can't do with as many people. If you actually look at the preventative maintenance we have, going by the standard that building trades and everybody put in, we have about 3,300 hours of just preventative maintenance to do a year. So it's about a position and a half. And then last year we completed just a little over 1,000 work orders. And the work orders, the hard part about the work orders is it's from changing a light bulb to tearing down a toilet. So you really can't, there's not a real hourly thing on there, but anybody in the county puts in a work order, we handle that. So.
So guesstimate on that?
Guesstimate on that, it's going to go down. I don't know how much because I don't know how much insurance and stuff's going to go up. So we'll just say it's going to stay even for payroll. We also need to purchase under payroll, and these aren't in the capital, but we have a 13-year-old plow that we need to replace. It's showing stress fractures in it. We've shelved it and actually have used the hydraulic pump and the hydraulic ram off it to replace another one that went out 3 weeks ago. So we need to actually replace a plow at a cost of about $8,000 just in front of a pickup. And then we'd also like to purchase a sewer camera for about $9,800. With the age of the buildings and stuff like that, we've had to rent or have a contractor come in and do that. And the more need for the sewer camera, we can use one almost every day, especially in the jail to find out where clogs are and stuff like that. And
That sounds-
unfortunately, yeah, I can show you some pictures if you want. Again, Jeff, like I did with the grinder pump.
Yeah, the grinder, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Gene,
Yes.
Grinder's not taking care of things.
The grinder's taking care of things for West Side
Oh, okay.
because it's in the main line. But I can show you some pictures of what inmates can shove down a toilet and it'll amaze you. So it gets stopped up in the walls and stuff like that, and we have to just go in there and manually remove it. Just tennis shoes, blankets, beds, you name it. Cow birthing gloves come in very handy, is all I'll say.
What?
Cow birthing gloves will come in very handy because they go up to your shoulders. That's all I'll say on that one.
Excellent.
But that, and then a pro press, and what a pro press does is instead of, you guys have used shark bites probably in your house. Think of that on a bigger thing. Sometimes Mountain Land lets us use theirs. The hard part about that is we can't always get it because they lend it out to all of their other vendors and stuff like that. That's about $6,500. And we would use that, easily in that. So we were looking at that. We can probably pull that out if we absolutely need to, but those are the two pieces of equipment along with the plow that I'd like to get that under the $10,000 threshold.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Gene, does your budget allow you to get those this year? Any of that this
I
year?
don't think so. I'll have to look. I'll wait a little bit, but if we could, I'd like to try to sneak
Yeah,
it in. But
I think if you can, and even if we have to move some
yeah,
money
we'll
out
look
of
at that.
operation or something, Bonnie can move it.
Well, and that's the hard part. We'll go into operations next since we just kind of skipped down to capital. Everything's up.
Yeah.
20 to 30%.
Well, and if we can buy it now, it's
Yeah.
it's gonna be cheaper. And it
It'll be
will
cheaper,
be.
kind of like we did with the AC recharge unit.
Yeah.
You guys allowed us to do that.
Okay.
I don't have a guess. I mean, everything's going up. It's
Oh, I know.
amazing. If you look at what oil's doing, oil is in about everything that we use. You think of anything that's plastic, it's oil resin based. Right now, PVC manufacturers are holding their price for 2 days.
2 days.
2 days. Our shingle guy that did that held his for 7. And he goes, if you don't accept it by Monday, my price is going to go up X number of dollars. It's in the world we live in right now. It's difficult. But we're going by that. The hard part about the maintenance budget is we don't know what we're going to tackle. We walked in today and we lost a water heater. It just is what it is. We fix it, we go on. We try to keep up on it with preventative maintenance and use the best guess we can, but Murphy's Law really works. It's a truth statement. So I wish I could give you a total dollar figure on that, but I would just say if you want to take the operating budget and add 30% to it, you might be a little bit high, but that's a pretty good guess. And the operating budget was 400, so you can tack on another 100,000 on that. So that total budget's probably going to go $1.9 million to $2 million with the total facility maintenance budget. Hold on a sec. I might have looked at the wrong number.
I got 1.6.
1.6 or 1.8. Sorry, I was looking at what I wanted the last time. It's about 1.8.
I'll hold you to the other number.
Okay.
It was lower.
The other thing that with facility maintenance is that you have to remember, we have all the utilities for all the buildings in this. We haven't seen anything yet as far as rate increases, but they're coming. They just are. One thing that's interesting about it is we had Bridge Valley Power actually gave us a check back last year because they are a co-op, so they actually pay their co-op people back last year. And then a week later, we got a thing that said, hey, everything's going to go up 18%. So it is what it is.
We're obviously not charging enough if we had to give.
Yeah, exactly. If we had to give back money. The hard part about that is the Bridge Valley Co-op does a lot of their electricity, hydroelectric wise. And if anybody knows what's happening down at Lake Mead, Lake Powell right now, the power pool is down significantly, so they cannot produce power as efficiently. So that cost just goes up.
It's falling behind, it's falling down under the line.
It is. So.
Questions on maintenance then?
No, and I guess, Mr. Chairman, I think the only question I have is, and I think the other hard part with maintenance, and you've kind of mentioned this, is the uncertainty with the inflation, and the cost of materials. I mean, it's out of, Marty mentioned it in her report. I mean, that's something like gas that it's hard to make such a prediction for right now because just the flux our economy's in at this point. And and just the cost of building. And I think that makes it very hard to have an accurate prediction.
I'll give you a really good example. I know everybody was excited. And I hopefully Dave Davis is watching this about the new water stations that went in everywhere. It took us 4 months just to get the glue that goes actually behind the backer board because it has to be food grade to go behind the backer board. We needed a quart. They gave us 5 gallons. That's all we could get. We took it. It is what it is.
So we have some to sell.
We have a lot to sell, but we can use it for other things because it is a good glue, but it had to be a special glue because it had to be food grade.
5 gallons. All right.
5 gallons. So we'll use it, but it won't just be for that. So if you want to move on to 1,300 custodial facility custodial, that payroll is going to go down again because of VSP. We will get rid of one position. And then what we'll do is that's a middle management position again, and we'll get rid of that position whole and replace it from the bottom up. So we have actually more boots on the ground on that. Everything else on that one looks really good. Not much to say on that one. That's pretty easy budget. The only thing that I will say is we do have operating in there, chemicals and stuff like that. That'll be directly proportionate to what Marty does. They buy a lot of stuff on bulk, but price goes up. It is what it is. So Parks and Rec payroll will be going up on that because you guys allowed me to hire 2 additional 6-month employees. That'll take us back to our 2020 staffing levels. Fuel and materials under operating, they're going up. That's all I can say. Fertilizer's going up. Fuel's going up. Everything about that is going up. So other than that, we have a little bit of capital we'll talk about in the parks budget, but other than that, it'll be about where it is minus the fuel and materials at our 2021 budget.
505, how much of your budget are those kind of things that are going to increase, or we're just asking for guesstimates today. So, I mean,
if say another 10 grand.
Thank you.
Fleet, it will be 1,800. Payroll will stay the same. We have the same 2 mechanics outside of insurance and all that stuff that will go up. The $7,366.51 under debt services under capital will drop off. Our last payment will be made May of that. Fuel and maintenance is going up. That's all I can say. I hate to beat a dead horse, but it's going to go up on that one. I don't know exactly. If you already look at it right now, we're already over budget on 2 of those items. We're holding okay as far as operating goes. But our operating right now is running at 90%, just at that maintenance, that fleet maintenance. We should be at 72% or something like that. But hard part about it is you never know. Fleet maintenance is kind of like building maintenance. You never know what's going to break down. We did 8 transmissions this year that were past the life of the vehicle. We couldn't take them back in. They were past the warranty period. So getting back on the road, our guys fixed them themselves and put them back in. So, but we did 8 of those. On to the big budget, road and bridge.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Doc.
did Gene go back to fleet maintenance?
Okay.
I know in the past, prior to, I'll just say a couple of years ago, we had quite a bit of contract services for fleet maintenance, repairs and that type of thing. And I believe that's dropped considerably. Or do we still have quite a bit?
That's
I
under
still see-
road and bridge.
Oh,
We had
that's
quite a
road
bit.
and
That's
bridge.
road and bridge.
All right, I'll wait for road and bridge. Let's wait for road and bridge.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Road and bridge. I've said this before, and I don't think it can be said enough. Road and bridge is down over the last 12 years. If you just consider payroll, what it is right now, payroll, what it was back 2009, it's $837,000. Just subtract those. That's not the savings that you guys have realized year over year over year over year by getting, I don't want to say getting rid of, that's a bad term, but using VSP and other retirement to get rid of the 12 people that are over there. One thing about that is we've gotten rid of that many people, but we've also added about 110 miles, 118 miles of road. And the roads, as you know well, outside of Wamsutter are getting more used. People are out there, they're recreating, they're doing all those kinds of good stuff that we enjoy in Southwest Wyoming, but we saw increases on almost every single road except for Wamsutter. Wamsutter, the reason why that didn't increase as much is because 2 years ago, we had 930 semis a day going up and down that road. That's tough to beat. You'd think $128 per barrel of oil would drive that cost up, and we'd see 900 more semis out there right now, but we don't. There is 4 active rigs in the area. They are doing stuff, so we're seeing a little bit of uptick on that. But the nice thing about that is in the last 2 years, we've used that reduction in things to really improve that road and to haul a lot of road base out there and put fabric in the places we could. So
You've also had better equipment.
I'd say better equipment because we have two bigger blades you guys allowed me to buy 2 years ago. That's made a difference because a bigger blade can just 2 things. Can move the snow a lot better. I know we haven't had a lot of snow, but you can put the wing out there and we can blow the snow off a lot more. The other thing is from an operator safety standpoint on those roads, the bigger blade has a bigger stance on the road. So 3 years ago, we actually had a blade get clipped by a semi. This guy never stopped. He actually spun the blade around. The blade was in the borrow ditch. Guy never stopped. With the 160 blades, you can't do that. They're a bigger blade. They just look more menacing. They take up half the road. People actually slow down when they come up to them, no matter how many signs or anything we have on them. With our current blade policy that we have, where you guys allow me to buy 2 blades every year and we rotate those out every 7, based on either hours or time. They usually time out before they get to hours. We've saved the county about $100,000 to $120,000 in maintenance every year because CAT just takes care of it because they're on a warranty. Now, when you get to our trucks, to answer Commissioner Wedling's thing, we have saved some money. I don't have an exact dollar figure for, but I will have it during our next budget presentation because of one of the mechanics we hired. He had 19 years of experience. Most of it was at Cummings. So that has been a huge help to us as far as keeping those trucks there or diagnosing the problem. And if we can't fix it because we don't have the right tools to fix that, taking it to the different things and going, these are the problems. And then he knows how much it should be because he worked at those places. That should drive down our costs. One thing about that is we are down to 1 mechanic in that area because of the VSP. We had discussed that. He's okay with that. It's a huge safety concern for me because you have a person working on heavy equipment by himself. If we were able to consolidate that, we could get by with 3 mechanics instead of 4. But right now, because we are in 2 separate buildings, we can't. We're going to work around that by bringing in, different people, different operators, stuff like that. But that doesn't allow people to actually be out on the road doing what they should be doing because they have to come back and help the mechanic. The other thing that we might do this year, and I'm still trying to throw it around, is we currently have 14 blades in our fleet. I think we can realistically purchase 2 blades, turn 2 in, purchase 2 blades, and get 2 and just retire 2, give them back to CAT. Looking at the hours we put on, it'll cost more in transport. But the hard part about that is I don't really know if we want to put the dollars in front of the people, in front of the services on that. I'm just really looking at that hard to see if that's really an objective. Like right now, we could have used them. We had several ranchers call, several other people where if we had the other blades, we can, disperse other people and go down and say, hey, plow snow. But I don't think that's a good services. But right now, what I'm really doing is struggling between people over services, and I don't know exactly where we're going to go with that. So I'll have we have a meeting with CAT on Friday, and I'll have a better option on that as far as I know. The other thing is training. We might need to raise training a little bit. We have been using local training services. We have to do CPR first aid and MSHA every other year. We use District 1 Fire to do our CPR first aid. For the 2nd year in a row, that actually went really well. And we'll keep using those local resources. But MSHA is one of those ones where we have to take it from the college. We have to take it from somebody certified. Now, there isn't that many people around. So costs are going to go up on that a little bit, but I don't think, you're probably looking at maybe $500 total on that actual one in there.
Do you have that in your budget already, or you need to have it in your budget?
Well, I have it in my budget already, but the problem is when you actually look at all of operating is so skewed right now because of my fuel.
Okay.
And maintenance, that I don't know exactly where that's going to be at.
Okay.
Just to give you guys an example, this time last year, 2 years ago and 3 years ago, I just looked at it. We were paying per one drop per month in our fuel tank. We were paying in between $12,000 and $14,000 dollars. This last drop that we just had cost us $24,000. And it is what it is. And, usually in a year, you can actually predict that where it goes up and then it comes back down and it goes back up. So you kind of have a mean in there. We haven't had a mean. It just went up and up and up. So that's one of those things that I don't think I'll raise my fuel budget. But if I don't think that's fair. We'll use what we use. And if I have to come back and ask for more, but with the operating and looking at that as a whole, we've been able to pull some money around. But, just right now, if you look at our fuel budget, we're at 76% already through our fuel budget. So and that doesn't include what got dropped in there last week. So it's fuel, heavy equipment, stuff like that. The other thing that we started doing, just so you guys know, we're fueling our blades and our trucks in the morning. That way, if they're out at night, because we leave them out there, that way they don't have 80 gallons or 100 gallons topped off and then somebody come and drill a hole in the bottom of it or cut the lock off or something like that. That way they only get a quarter or a half a tank. They don't get a full tank. So that'll cost us a little bit more on the front end while everything's warming up in the summertime to fuel, because it does take a little bit of time, but people are out there and they're stealing stuff. So we just have to be aware of it. We're bringing our blades back. We used to be able to scatter them out a little bit, except for on Lost Dog. We could never leave one of our blades down on Lost Dog because it always get rocks thrown out and the windows busted out of it, no matter how long we kept it down there. So we always brought that back over on 530. Now we're bringing everything back closer to the interstate or closer to a facility that has people out there, just because we just can't leave it out there. So we lose some inefficiencies, about 4%, because the guys have to travel farther in the blades. But you lose 400 gallons, $400 worth of gas in one time because you didn't bring it back. It saves on some efficiencies also. So that's just something we have to look to and actually do. So hopefully I didn't bore you too much with the road and bridge, but it's a big item.
Good information. So bottom line, 3.3 million. What are you thinking next year?
5 with fuel, who knows? No, I don't know. Where you're looking at 3.3, that's probably a good guess. If we keep, payroll the same, depending on how much that goes up, and if we do the blades. But like I said, that's a service item or a people item. I don't know exactly which way we're going yet. I really got to analyze that.
Okay. So not a huge increase, but
I don't think so.
But in some areas.
If you guys let me know what's happened with fuel and maintenance, I'll get you a better number.
Totally.
You'll still be pushing nearly 7 million
Mhm.
through your whole department. Okay.
So capital, do you guys want to go through that, or you want to let Mr. Bernazian?
Let's do Mr.
Go.
Bernazian and then do capital.
Any questions?
If the other
Gene,
group's
before we go?
okay with that. If the rest of the group's okay with that.
Unfair.
No questions, Lauren? All right. Mr. Bornasian. Let's do it, Mike. And I will apologize to Mike for not being on the initial agenda. I approved it without thoroughly looking at it. And Mike, we missed you. And so I apologize for that. Thanks for pointing it out.
That's all right. Everything's been kind of a whirlwind with the fire department anyway, so for the fire department, we're looking at eliminating 2 9-month seasonals that we've carried and potentially looking at eliminating the deputy county fire warden position. Savings in salary of about $194,000. Operating pretty much staying stagnant. Even with this was a number that I've had for a while, so I got to reevaluate the operating just a little bit, primarily for fuel. And then I have 2 options for capital: nothing, because all my lease payments are done, or replacing one pickup that has 167,000 miles on it, which is the one I drive the most. It's a primary response And I would like to see it replaced if the fire department stays in play, but I'm also willing to not replace it. It matters to keeping the capital where it needs to be or maintaining a fire department. And that's all I have.
That's straightforward. Thank you. So on this new budget that I got this afternoon, 547, is that
547 in payroll. Yeah,
okay? Payroll. And
that's correct.
And operating, you're saying this?
It's about 80. I think it was 86 this current year. It's 86 something. I don't have it in front of me. Looking at keeping it about the same.
So I'd have the pickup in capital.
And then a pickup in capital for lease payments, it would have to be upfitted. But the other thing to look at that is if we can keep that truck going for another year or two, there's a pickup truck specified in one of the impact siding projects.
There's what?
A pickup slated for one of the impact siding projects.
That's right.
So that might be, I'd like to, if the fire department stays in place, my plan is to have no capital expenses out of the budget. Utilize grants and impact siding money for all capital needs. So outside of a pager or something like that might pop up because pagers are capital, even though they're about $500. But outside of that, all capital would come out of impact siding projects and grants.
So at the bottom line, 808 down to?
It's 808 down to 631. Roughly.
Perfect. Of course.
And that's with the 7.5% increase in insurance.
And then, of course, who knows what we're doing with fuel?
Yeah.
Because we're not in charge of that. Perfect. Any questions?
Fire trucks aren't the most fuel efficient. So
when you go gallons per mile instead of miles per gallon, it's
yeah.
True. When you're talking that way, it's not what you want. Questions for Mike?
Well, the fire committee will be presenting at the next meeting, but the other option would be for about 450,000, 400 to 450,000 for the, if we farm it out.
Thank you.
I would only ask that if you compare it to farm it out, that you use the same contract price rate that Green River has proposed for Wamsutter based on their 90 calls to make sure it's an accurate depiction.
Okay, so the per call.
Yeah, the per call cost.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it's going to change that. It would change that number dramatically.
Good.
That's all I have.
Questions, Lauren? No. All good. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mike.
that. Let's talk some capital then.
Hopefully all you guys got this fancy colored thing in your email. So we'll go.
I couldn't print it. I didn't have enough ink.
Sorry. What the capital committee decided this year was to break down the capital instead of just giving you guys a 1 through 50 project. We actually broke it down into different categories. The first one is debt services. Those are agreements that are already in place that we have to pay this year. That totals about 1.2 million. And it includes sheriff debt service, facility custodial, road and bridge, parks and rec, and then body cameras for the sheriff that are on a renewing contract that we have to do every year. That makes up that total. New vehicle lease purchase. This would be a 3-year lease purchase on vehicles. Project number 1, we have Mike's County Fire Command vehicle, $24,500 per year for a total cost of $73,500. County attorney needs a new vehicle. Danny wants Batman. I guess he watched the new one, so he wants a Batmobile to drive back and forth. But they have been using hand-me-downs upon hand-me-downs upon hand-me-downs. And right now our hand-me-downs, because everybody's using them, so for so much longer, the hand-me-downs, we've ran out of hand-me-downs for him. So a total cost of about $13,600 per year. Purchasing needs to replace their delivery truck, what they use all the time. Marty's pulled that out of her budget the last 3 times. We finally told her she's getting it. If you guys approve it, so we put that on there. Road and bridge, we replace a couple pickups every year, every other year. That includes that one. New pool vehicle replacements. We ran into this a couple times where we need to, Marty and I will be going through the pool vehicles and getting rid of a ton of pool vehicles and actually getting some or doing some other things to get some more quality pool vehicles, because if we send somebody out of town, we don't want them to break down and have to send a mechanic out after them. And then the last one is the assessor's new lease vehicle. He has a vehicle that has about 83,000 miles on it. That's a 2007. We've already talked about that one, but we ranked that in the vehicles as number 6 project. The next one, the blue one, would be what Christina's talked about as far as using the ARPA funding to purchase those vehicles. So we won't go through that. Our fourth item was a miscellaneous office capital. We broke this apart because sometimes office capital gets lumped into construction projects and vehicles and everything like that. And, you know, it's basically copiers, annual computer replacement, and then desk phone replacement that Tim's talked about. The copier is for the clerk of district court, and she's mentioned that to you guys already before. So if we tackle all the different capital projects for core county, and what we did is we broke core county separate from component units on capital. One reason we did that is because there's no representative to argue their case on the capital committee for core county or for component units. The other thing is, depending on what you guys do with core county and component units, that should also reflect in their capital also. So we can go through those real quick if you have any questions. But a lot of it is for sheriff replacing tactical armor, doing a ham radio upgrade and AM radio upgrade and DMR equipment. Don't ask me what that is, because I don't know. Replacement of patrol rifles. Those rifles are, I believe, 15 or 16 years old, John said, and they are in need of being replaced. One of the ones that I'd like to highlight in there is vehicle, fleet and vehicle maintenance. I have blade and vehicle and heavy truck tracking software. And what that is we've actually looked at that 4 or 5 years ago. And what it is, it goes on your ODB2 port, and it tracks your vehicle. Everything the computer spits out, you can see. And the nice thing about that is we can allocate stuff. We can use it. We can also find out when people are speeding. We can do that and wrap it into our safety program. And actually, if we do this correctly, it should, our safety program, if Gary's right, it brings down our stuff and everything like that. So it actually pay for itself with that. The other thing about that is with blades, we can put them in blades. The nice thing about that is everybody fills out a work order. We track that and everything like that, but we have no way of proving if we've been on a road. With this, you can actually, the last time we used it, I actually watched the blade do 5 passes on one road, and I could tell him exactly what he did that day. So it's really nice, keeps them for a year. Depending on which ones we go with, they read and they actually ping the satellite the cell towers every 6 seconds. So you get real accurate data. Everything like that. If there's ever a wreck, you know exactly what was happening. If there was how many G forces, anything like that. So most of the private companies right now have been using them for 8-10 years. We're just a little bit behind. I think this is a good time to do it. And with the savings in our insurance, I think it just makes sense for everybody. Dave's even on board on this with the assessor vehicles and stuff like that. So
What does that cost? Is that
$17,000 a year?
So that's is
17, almost
software
18.
is okay.
Software and the modules that actually go in into the things, but that's for about
You go ahead and check. Okay.
57 units. It's a monthly subscription.
Great.
Pretty much Tim covered all the IT stuff. We do have some stuff that we need to do at the parks. Everybody knows the saga that we've had out at the picnic grounds with the pump. So we need to actually do that and upgrade some stuff and actually line the pond so we're not losing everything that we're pumping in there. And then maintenance, we have the security upgrade that we've discussed over here in the county, in your guys' hallway, to actually separate that and separate voting from having people just walk in through that. That's an important security upgrade, adding a wall and doing some other things for voting that we can do there. South parking lot ceiling, trap club, ADA things, and Pioneer Trails Park roof replacement. So all those are ranked. You guys can go through those. I don't want to bore you guys because we're getting kind of long here. The component units capital are broken down on that. One of the ones that we ranked number 1 was the events complex. They have an RV rally site improvement project for $107,000. They've made promises to get this done before one of the RV rallies come in. So if any of those ones, if you guys have a look at it, those are there. The library ones are all the fire panel upgrades and stuff like that. talking to Lindsay Travis, the new library director. She actually got real costs and they have to pull wiring in. They just can't upgrade the panels. So she actually, you know, if you look at the one, they finished the project, they need another 58,000 to finish the project. I think we just they put in originally 15 or 25,000 on all those as just a budget number. And then they actually went out and got real costs and they're significantly more. So other than that, you know, the total cost for capital expenditures, not include the ARPA funding, is 4.4 million. If you guys fund everything this year. So, but we ranked them all. We got together, the committee, put in a lot of hours looking to get stuff on their time. And I think it was well worth it to give you guys an accurate number.
That's great. I appreciate the work that was. So we're only not even 28% of our capital for this year spent. Is what's up with that? What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
and then the
we will
roof,
be-
well, I guess roof's coming out of something else. The roof project's only about 75%.
So we're going to spend it all.
Not all, but we'll spend a lot of it.
Okay. I was just curious. I was like, that seems like way low. We're going to roll over some money, but
We will
let-
roll
let it
over some.
close.
I mean, it's one of those ones where we've looked out and pulled some stuff off or postponed some stuff because of parts.
Okay.
And stuff like that, where we just said, I can't get it done, so no use doing it.
Doc.
No, I was just looking at the library museum and, you know, we own those buildings
We do.
and, you know, I just think we're responsible for that capital
We
for
are.
those buildings. And, you know, when I hear that they're using money that they could buy books and stuff for the community to have there rather than that, I just think there's something wrong with that picture. So I highly encourage that we, especially at the library museum, you know, and then I truly believe certain parts of the Sweetwater Events Complex, just because of our new MOUs and stuff that we're putting together, there's just more and more stuff that we need to be responsible for. And we fund them anyhow, so taxpayers and that type of thing. So we need to step it up a little bit with those capitals, Gene. I'm glad to see they're in there along with everything else. So thank you for all that.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add something to that. One of the things is if we do all on those buildings, they have their own facility maintenance people and we work with them a little bit. One of the things about it is if you want to talk about contracting stuff that we have no say in, that's one of those things where we don't have any say in it. If they want to fix stuff, they fix stuff. But it's your guys' buildings. It's the taxpayers' buildings. And some of that stuff I think could be better served if it was brought in-house. But that would actually add payroll to facility maintenance because like I said, we couldn't do it with the current staff we have. But some of that stuff, like if you just go over and look at the library over here, the downspouts are in need of repair, the stuff like that. They can handle the interior stuff, but if you don't have people looking at those all the time, you miss stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are some things that we don't have something to say about because they have
Right.
their own boards and
Mhm.
that type of thing. But those things that we do, we need to take care of, and where we can have them in MOUs that, you know, at least with the building itself, we need to. Thank you.
Right. And I think, you know, with MOUs and stuff like that, you can hammer stuff down and get them tight so that cost overruns aren't really what they are,
There you go.
what everybody perceives they're going to be.
Thank you.
So how many buildings are there that
we own?
Yeah, that we own.
So the 3 libraries,
But then-
Southwest counseling buildings,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but
we don't do maintenance. on
CDC,
any of
no,
those?
they have their own
Every one of those component units has their own.
Yeah.
Or contract, call a plumber or whoever.
plumber, or whoever, contract call plumber.
I didn't know that.
We have a complete list if you guys want to send that to and who, you know, we have a lot of buildings. We have a lot of
Yeah.
square foot.
We have a lot of buildings we don't use.
Yeah.
So,
That too. Roy, what else do you have?
yeah, just 2 things. I think, number one, I think, speaking of the component agency, other folks, outside, maintenance requests that we also own the buildings. I think it's important that we make some of those priorities, even if it does take away from their general budget, because there seems to be a tendency, I know last year when we were looking at cutting the library budget, they moved some of the items off their capital list that I actually saw as kind of super important. For example, wiring the panels of the fire system. To me, some of those things are actual huge health and safety and public pieces. And I understand the need for creating public programs, but those are our buildings. And I had the honor or I don't know if it was an honor, or we'll go privilege to work with Gene and Gary and John with an outside entity of a building we own to see the dilapidation in some of those buildings that are pretty significant. And I think it's important that we're making sure those are priorities. The other thing too is something that Gene and I have talked about. I think Gene and I and Doc talked about it one night. The number of vehicles we have in this county is astronomical. And I think we need to create some policies and rules of when we would look at redoing some vehicles, because there are some vehicles that don't get much use. There are vehicles that get significant use and may need to be, may need to be changed more. But, Gene and I were talking about some department vehicles that maybe get 3,000 miles a year, where the average, police sheriff's vehicle is going to go 22 to 25 a year. Same with some of the motor graders. They're going to have to be at a different replacement level. And I think finding some rules and concepts, and maybe even finding ways to go to some communal pools of vehicles that reduce the total number. Because at one time, didn't we have like a vehicle almost for enough for every employee, so to speak?
I don't want to put Tim on the spot, but the only thing's worse is computers. Right? We have a lot of computers per people and we have a lot of vehicles per people. When you consider, I don't want to put a number on it, but 60% of the people show up to work in their own vehicle and never drive. But we have more than that for everybody that drives.
So I do think that's something we can truly evaluate as we're looking for efficiency. So
we can. And the other thing too is, if you guys remember the sheriff, if we can turn his vehicles over on the 3-year mark, about a little less than 100,000 miles. Now, I'm not saying that for all vehicles, because all of you guys know the gold standard used to be, hey, you get rid of a vehicle at 100,000 miles. I just bought a vehicle with 100,000 miles on it. It's going to run forever. That's went out the window. So we really need to have different pools of vehicles. But if you do the sheriff's vehicles right, in about 3 years, you can sell 5 vehicles and actually pay for 2 vehicles. So you get 5 new vehicles for the cost of 3. So we need to really start looking at that. We need your guys' direction on that. Yeah, we have a lot of vehicles that, I jokingly tell a couple people that, hey, can I take your vehicle so I can run some fuel through it so it doesn't varnish in the engine?
Probably not what we want.
Yeah, I better borrow one of those.
Yes.
Good. I see Lauren with her hand up, her actual hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to tell Gene and the Capital Committee, thank you. This is huge. We've come so far over the past couple of years in having these prioritized and having them all in one list and having amounts posted to them, including our component units. This is a huge help to our budgets and building that out and understanding the needs of our community and being able to plan for that. So I appreciate it. And I also wanted to say that I echo what Roy and Doc have said about the component units and public safety. And these are assets to our community that, we've had for a long time. They're historical, some of them, and we do need to make sure that we're taking care of them. So I appreciate it.
One of the other things I want to point out is everybody concentrates on this year's, but what we're really trying to do is extend that through. If you guys like to look, Candy did a really good job of this. If you look down at the 2027 projects, I have a $2 million bill there for HVAC upgrades to this building. This building will be 60 years old this year. The HVAC has been at best cobbled together. It was designed to do a certain airflow. If you look at the basement, the whole entire basement was storage when this building was built. Now it's multiple offices, multiple suites, stuff like that. I can't tell you how many times that I've had to call the attorney's office up and say, hey, stop cooking bacon because I can smell it in my office, because we share the same. The problem with that is I'm in the center of the building. The controller for their stuff is in my office. My office fluctuates a half a degree. Theirs freezes at some certain times because they're on the outside of the building. They have another $1.2 million for building roof replacements, sheet barn renovation, stuff like that. We really need to do some long-term planning, some big capital items, and look at that stuff, with Bonnie and Christina and the capital committee and to go further down the road and start planning for that, because if not, it's going to come up and it's going to bite us.
Are those the 2024 and beyond? Are those listed in ranking, or did you not rank those? Just listed?
We didn't rank them. We did list them because a lot of times we don't get enough information from everybody. A lot of stuff is what I interpret as multi-year projects, debt service, stuff like that. And then, just kind of going down the list and trying to put that together.
And in
my ultimate goal would be to have a 5-year list for you guys that was set in stone. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's pretty darn hard.
Mr. Chairman, I think one other comment, the reason I think this capital list is really important is with the move to the ad valorem tax and how we'll be collecting money. I think it becomes even more important because it's going to be hard sometimes to say we have $3.2 million for capital this year. It may be, hey, in the month of August this year, July and August, we're going to do projects 1, 2, and 3, see what the collections are, and then make a decision which numbers you can go down. So having that list, and when we first started the capital committee, the concept was having really a living, breathing, changing document because needs are going to change. I mean, I always use the example of all it's going to take is one piece of legislation and we may have to add a courtroom. And that right now wasn't even on our radar, but all of a sudden that could become number one. And so I think being willing to be able to live, breathe, and move with that document's important. But I also think really being able to know that, hey, with that ad valorem tax, we do have a lot in reserves, which will help with that. But that will be making collection and budgeting different in the future until we really get used to that ad valorem system.
We'll have the cash flow through every year.
How come the in the 2024 only road and bridge is highlighted in red?
Because nobody else put in any money.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The red one. Yeah, that's just a fat finger on my part. Sorry. I guess the joke doesn't. If you look at 2025 and 26, yeah, those projects are, what were multiple projects are just what people put in.
Okay.
So
thought I'd harass you about that.
That's okay.
No, it's great though, but I'm not printing it still. Any other questions for capital?
I appreciate the process. Did
Oh, yeah.
the department heads, did you like this process of getting you up here ahead of time?
I had fun. Good. I'm sure everybody had a good time. Excellent. Any other questions or comments for this budget workshop?
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
everybody did a good job. I think though that the next steps are what?
Next step is meeting, we're getting out our, not the grant document.
Component?
Yeah,
Or
what's the thing called?
Budget worksheets.
The worksheet. And then what have you been working on, Roy? What's that thing called?
It'd be the request form for
Request.
the outside entities and component units.
Thank you. Yes. So we'll get
And it wasn't
those
just
out.
me, it was Mary and Bonnie and Christina and John,
Excellent. Good
but
job.
I
Spread
led the
love.
process.
But you knew the name of it, so that's awesome. Yeah, so we'll get those out, and when those are returned, then we start with those entities as well. And then obviously, we're gonna have to firm up and finalize more of these numbers along the way when we get the budget workshop or the worksheet out. So I think everybody's doing great work so far, and we really appreciate it. I mean, it's March, and I have a much better idea of where we are already compared to last year, much further along. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I just might mention to us as well that as we move in with component units and outside agencies, I think it becomes important to have that conversation as to what are we going to do for our employees, because that dollar figure should come ahead of component units and ahead of outside agencies.
Completely agree.
So I think we need to have that conversation as to what is that cost of living raise going to be. Keep in mind, just this last month alone, there was over nearly 6% cost of living just in the last month for people in this country. And not to mention our own people who are behind by almost 10 to 12%. So, it's not going to get any better for our employees if we don't take care of them. And I think we need to do that ahead of outside agency and component units. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments? Items you'd like to see on our next meeting's agenda? Yes, you may.
When we first started talking about the capital committee and projects and things like that, I think it's been a great tool. It's been a very big help, I think, for a lot of departments. But it was also talked about, as we went through the year, we would know if we would have monies for projects that weren't funded. So as you look at what's expended compared to what's budgeted, excluding say my truck, for instance, but somebody else's projects, would the board look at being able to take on some of those other projects and capital that are slated for next year if that money remains in this year's budget to perhaps try and beat inflation and things like that, and the projected rise in cost of materials might be advantageous to consider to take a look at those sooner than wait till the next fiscal year. Because it seems like when you approve the budget, it generally takes a couple months to get quotes, get things rolling, and then we're already behind. So being that it's March, I just wanted to throw that on the table to ask for your consideration.
Sure.
So
No, I think that's a good idea. Especially with if we have specifics. Oh, Gene's got a comment here.
I think that's a good idea, but the original intent of the capital committee was to give you guys a list of 1 through 28 projects. If you guys only funded 1 through 7, then we would move down to 8, 9, and 10. Is how that was supposed to work. So not funding next year's projects, just continuing on with that list.
No,
So
and-
you guys can do whatever you want.
No, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
I
that's,
think that was your. that was
yeah,
your intent.
I agree with that. And where are we at? Where are we
Well,
at?
that's why
on
I
it?
asked them with the budget, we're only,
Well, because
20.
it goes right back to where we talked about buying that stuff out of this year's budget because of the costs going up. I think there's some real serious thought that needs to be given maybe over the next 2 or 4 weeks and no later, Gene, of, hey, there's some things we need to get going to get, we'll never get ahead of it. But, to not let us get it, let it hit us real hard. So I'm very much in agreement with that, with moving down the list. So let's find out where we're at and then let's take a look at, see what we want to approve. That would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. I don't know where others are. Thank you.
Thank you.
We might be able to pull that together in the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on budgets.
So
I got to work with Bonnie.
But let's make it a priority because I hate to see it get lost like a few other things have. Combined
both?
with?
Yeah,
No, combined with.
together.
Yeah, together. Come on, we got to get it done. This is what the board's asking. Together.
Right around the same time, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it a priority with the budget. How's that?
Yeah,
Budget is
with it.
definitely a priority. And we'll go from there. Any other comments, questions? All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I heard
Aye.
one. Okay, that'll do. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Tim?